Mental health and physical health are interconnected, and we often forget that. But there's a lot of studies around how our traumas, our relationship with food and with our body impact our bodily functions and our ability to really live well.
If I care about my body, not in the way that society wants me to care about my body, but in the way that actually matters, then I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of it.
A lot of the mood hormones that we experience are actually produced in our gut. It's important that we do maintain a healthy nutrition to support our mental health.
We're so distracted with life that we're just kind of walking around blind and just living in the moment of whatever million things we have to do for that day. And we have no idea what's going on with our bodies. Unfortunately, that leads to a lot of the unhealthy habits and the eating habits and all the things that we do that we just don't even think about. So my first step is
Hello and welcome back to the Invigor Medical Podcast. We're thrilled to have with us again our in-house Dr. Jones.
Hello, everyone.
I know we're working him hard today. If you've been paying attention and watching on YouTube, you can tell we're all in the same outfits because we're just knocking them out while we got Dr. Jones here.
That's right. We're lucky to have him.
We've got our repeating guest, Keilani Mason, who is a licensed
Mental health counselor.
Counselor. I always want to flip up those letters, and we've had Keilani on before, and Keilani is also the host of her own podcast, Delightfully Dysfunctional.
Fantastic show.
Yeah, fantastic show. And it's always fun to have Keilani on to offer a mental health side to the conversations that we're having around health and well-being. And we thought it would be a really cool opportunity to have Keilani and Dr. Jones in the same room while we talk about weight loss and well-being and mental health and medical expert advice and GLP-1s and all of those things, because I think it's important that we don't lose sight of mental well-being in this journey to have health and vitality and weight loss and fitness and all of those things. We can't leave the mental health portion of it behind. And so we wanted to demonstrate that we mean business about mental health too, folks.
That's right.
Keilani's a perfect one to bring on for this conversation. So where do you want to kick it off to start us, Derek?
Well, I think I want to start just by saying, in general, and we talked a lot about this before we even started, but in general, the societal pressures is kind of trends in one direction, which is you're not skinny enough, you're too big, your X, Y, and Z is hanging over this part of your body isn't looking in a certain way, and that's a problem, and it drives a lot of pathological behaviors. And so I guess I want to ask both of you, in your experience as clinical professionals, how have you seen this affect patients' lives, and how do you go about addressing it?
Yeah, so I'll start. This is a huge societal problem. Unfortunately, advertising companies, they know this. So we are forced to witness all these advertisements that are all around us, and we don't even know it the majority of the time. These things are imprinted into our subconscious. I mean, you can scroll on Facebook, you can drive down the street, look at a billboard, you can see all these things. And our subconscious mind, the way it works, it has to accept all these different things, and we do it without even knowing it. So we live our lives based off of kind of these things that have been imprinted into our minds. And that's hard, very, very hard to kind of break away from. But we have to do a better job just in general as a society to change the way that we think about, dieting, well-being, and weight loss. So that, I'm very, very excited about this podcast in general, because I do think that's something that is often missed, especially in the medical world. Yeah. So being able to provide this information and, let people know, hey, you're not alone in this. We are all suffering from a lot of these aspects. I mean, I think this is key to getting the conversation started.
I am curious. In our last episode, you talked about how they only spent an hour of medical school on nutrition.
Yeah.
How much of your medical schooling did they talk about these types of issues?
Yeah. Unfortunately, these issues are not, they're not the hot topics, unfortunately. Yeah. We get a little bit in terms of, when you have to rotate through psychiatry and such, but to get the true essence of kind of all these things, I mean, you get very little, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, Keilani, how would you address these issues?
Yeah, I think that we are one organism. So mental health and physical health are interconnected, and we often forget that. But there's a lot of studies around how our traumas, our relationship with food and with our body impact our bodily functions and our ability to really live well. And those societal messages aren't even just from marketing, unfortunately. A lot of them has been seeped into our family cultures. And so there can be comments, an aunt who's always making commentary no matter what, when maybe it doesn't even need to be commented on at all.
Right. And she had that taught to her by her mother or her aunt, and it just keeps getting passed down.
And that's that generational trauma of just like, this is what I know and this is how we relate to one another. But then we also have social media and all of the pictures that people are posting that are just highly curated or edited or posed a certain way. And so I think wherever that comparison is coming from for each individual, I invite you to be more intentional about what you are ingesting, especially through social media, and curate your social media to really be more positive, to have body image and body conversations that are more about having a compassion for this vessel that is meant to be here to allow you to experience life to the fullest.
Right. And who got to decide what is the right body shape or body weight or, obviously it's like, there's a point where, weight is actually damaging to your health. But anything underneath of that is nobody's freaking business.
Right. And look at how much it's changed over the years.
I was just thinking that.
It's not a stagnant thing. And so to want to fit your body to look a certain way for what in this particular time in history is popular or quote unquote deemed as attractive doesn't make a lot of sense or lead to fulfillment. And even different cultures have completely different ideas of what 100%. Is attractive.
Yeah.
And you genetically may not even be able to achieve what is the size, shape, whatever that is attractive right now in society. And I'm grateful at least that our daughters have a little bit more range being showed to them. Because I was just thinking about when I was a teenager, I used to get the Victoria's Secret catalog delivered to my house like twice a month. And I went through every single page of that and circled the things I wanted. And that was the ideal body to me, and it just makes me feel really sad how much that was just hammered home, and I think I fared better than a lot of women from our generation probably have. Like I said, I'm grateful at least that our daughters are starting to see, it's way more prevalent to see, beauty campaigns and self-care campaigns with women
bodies.
Right, but it's also a thing for men too,
right?
I was going to say it's almost a little bit more like narrowed down for men.
The pressures for men have increased, and there's that 100%. Idea, different, but to be like bulky, to be muscly, to et cetera, et cetera.
I was going to say like the you look on Instagram and you've got these guys that are just huge, and it's like, but you touch on a really important point where it's like genetics are such a huge part of that, and you can't change that, at least not yet. Maybe sometime down the road in some neo-tech future, but right now there are people that they can like look at a piece of protein and look at a weight and they just get shredded. And and then those are the people that rise up, that just naturally we select for that as a society, and that's what gets the most attention on social media, and it creates this negative cycle of us just continuing to see essentially the impossible ideal. And like that just leaves us in a really bad space where it's like feeling really bad about ourselves. And so I guess that's kind of set up the big problem that we're facing. So the real question is, I think you touched on this a little bit. You talked about stewardship. You talked about respecting your body and the journey that you've been through. Maybe can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we get this body for an unknown amount of time, and so I feel that having an awareness and being really intentional about the relationship we have with our body is important. And sometimes finding body appreciation can feel really difficult when someone's having negative body image that they've been navigating, but we can respect our body. Yeah. And I think there are so many things that our body allows us to do that we never pause and think about. Breathing. But, like I could get up out of bed and walk to the bathroom and get ready and start my day. And I had a friend in college who was in a wheelchair and had always been, and that was not her reality. Yeah. You know, having the gift of sight and just these little things that we so take for granted. It's important to have a pause and be intentional about the things that your body allows you to have access to. Whereas I feel a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this too, instead I'm shaming my body for just not having this particular ideal of what it should look like. And if Natalie and I stood up next to one another right now, there's at least a foot height difference between us.
Maybe
I am a shorty, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm 5 foot even. I am so short.
Well, and for those of you that need to know, Natalie, I'm 6'3". Natalie, you're 6'3" too, right?
I'm 6'3" in my heels.
Okay, guess what? Like I'm always looking you right in the eyes. I'm just like, you're awesome.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my tallest heels. I will never be taller than Natalie unless I'm on stilts.
That's right.
But there's a big genetic difference there, right? And like everybody kind of wants something they don't have. And I can't say I've ever wished to be short, but I have for sure hated being tall when I'm shopping for pants. You know, it's like it's really nice and it's cool until that thing. But to your point, just being that there's so many differences in being able to appreciate your body for what it is and have that gratitude and have that awareness, because you're right, there's so much that we're constantly going through in a day, you know, that we're just not aware of, and like having that quiet and that stillness.
So I do have a question, because it's like, it's one of these things where it's kind of a balancing act, right? Because there is a certain level of like self-image. Like I said on the previous podcast, one of my goals is to get as big as possible. And, you know, maybe there's a pathological underpinning to that, maybe not, but like I enjoy. And like, I think maybe this is a key part of it is I enjoy being able to see the progress I'm able to make. And I'm not like beating up on myself that I'm not going to be, you know, one of these super huge bodybuilders. You know, like I'm strong enough to do things with my family. I'm able to, you know, carry my daughter up a hill if I need to, you know, like I have that capability. But I guess the question that I wanted to ask is, you know, the desire to change can either have a pathological root or it can have a healthy root. How can you cultivate more of the healthy desire for change?
That's a good question.
I think you have to really sit with and pay attention to that relationship with your body and why you are wanting to achieve a certain goal.
Yeah.
What is the purpose behind it? And also, what is your relationship with food? You know, wanting to challenge your body to see what it's capable of for the journey of what that allows you is different than saying, I will only be happy if I look this certain way. I'm going to compare myself with others. I'm going to shame myself if I don't make it to the gym. I'm going to feel like shit if I didn't eat a completely quote unquote clean meal. And it is a balance between body acceptance and health. You know, we have to balance those things. And what is it that you're wanting more of in your life? Hopefully it's health, and hopefully it's loving yourself and others more. I think that's the foundation of a happy life. But so often we are real jerks to ourselves, and the things that are actually happening in our mind, we would never say to our best friend. We would never say to our children. And it's important to not just keep that inside and let it fester, because those are unconscious factors that can start to puppeteer us into having disordered eating or falling into unhealthy choices that don't truly benefit us. And that's all an illusion.
Yeah.
It makes me think about the kind of the inner, you're saying like we would never say this to our best friend, or our best friend would never say it to us. And I'm like, and then to me, it comes back to one of the most important things about this self-image is like this idea that we can't give what we don't have. So if Keilani, you're telling me that my ass looks great in these jeans and I look fantastic, and I'm just like, no, it's just fat. I don't like it, whatever. But if I don't believe it for myself, you could tell me all day up, and especially if my inner dialogue is, well, I know sometimes when I'm trying to talk good about myself or someone else, what I'm really thinking is, no, you do look bad in those pants. You know what I mean? Right. Then I'm like even less able to receive what you're saying is true.
The love that I'm giving you.
I can't at all, because I don't believe that. I don't believe that I intrinsically am beautiful and deserve that, and I don't believe that you believe that about yourself either. You know what I mean? Because this is just a thought pattern of belief that makes it that no matter how much work you do to try to love me and tell me all of that, I'm, you know, it might help a little, but I think at the end of the day, it's an inside job, and I won't be able to overcome that without switching it up for myself.
Right. And for those of the listeners or people here that are parents, I think that's a huge thing that we have to pay attention to. There's a client I once had with her daughter, and she was like, she says that she doesn't like the way she looks and she's beautiful. I tell her all the time, I don't know why she feels that way. And the little girl looked over at her mom and said, well, Mom, that's what I see you doing when you look in the mirror. Like she hears her mother saying these critical things. And I started to look at my own relationship with my mother, and she still says really negative things about her body. But when she's in my home, I have to say, hey, you have to say something kind to yourself now, because you just insulted someone I love.
Yeah.
Right.
And we have to be able to model that behavior for the people around us. And, just again, like your body looking a certain way does not determine your ability to love yourself and find your value. Yeah. And for completely different reasons. Like, I grew up in a very rural area, and I was the only minority. And so all I wanted was to have blonde hair and blue eyes, and I hated that I looked different and had a weird name. Yeah. And now, obviously, those aren't things I could have changed, and I love and celebrate the way that I look and my differences. And in those, just as that example, you can also find things that you really love and value about your body. This is a gift you've been given to, again, like, experience the world around you.
And I think that we could kind of use that a little bit as a hack, thinking about, like, parenting and, like, talking about, if you're struggling to love yourself, love your body, love where you're at. Like, try to imagine how you would feel if your child, or you don't even have to be a parent, someone that you deeply love, they started talking about themselves like that. How's that going to feel?
Yeah. Right.
And I actually was just having a conversation with a friend the other day who mentioned specifically something about her daughter saying, oh, well, you always check how you look when pictures. How do I? And so she made a point, never. When people are like, do you want to see it? She's like, nope. Am I in it? I look good. Cool. Like, just flipped that right away because they are listening at such a high level. But yeah, just to come back and think, like, if the way that I'm speaking to myself and thinking about myself is exactly how the person that I love most was speaking about and thinking of themselves, what would I say to them? And, what is actually true? Because we get in these thought patterns, we get in these loops, especially if it's things that have been told to us repeatedly over the years, from just the media and marketing and, let alone potentially our own families. Yeah. And it's wild how long those things will stick with you. One comment from one teacher in 5th grade at the gym could be the thing that lives with you forever. So it's also, side note, reminder to consider your words.
Consider your words. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to just do a better job just in general as a society and just change. I mean, we need to promote, obviously, body diversity and, self-acceptance. I mean, that's, you are who you are. You are perfect in God's eyes. And you have to be able to, celebrate that and be more intentional. I make it a point, personally every day, to stand in front of the mirror and look at myself and say all the things that I appreciate about myself in front of the mirror. Yeah. Just to remind myself that, I'm a divine human being. Yeah. I deserve to be here. These things are great about me, and it doesn't matter, what other people have to say or what other image is supposed to be a better image or, whatever. Right. Those are all really, really important things that we need to continually remind ourselves, because like I mentioned before, I mean, these things are imprinted in our subconscious, and we have to change that, because otherwise you'll just pass it to the next person, your children, you'll just and they'll pass it on, and it'll just continue to be this cycle.
We have to break the cycle. And I'm thinking, it's such a beautiful practice. Yeah. And so now I'm thinking, like, because we're talking about weight loss and health and fitness and everything, and now that we're having this conversation, I'm like, wow, what if you started with this idea of, like, divine being, worthy of love, beautiful as is, and then you go, how am I going to care for this one body I'm given? How am I going to feed and nurture and exercise and move this body? And now it's not as about, I just gave myself goosebumps, guys. Now it's not as much about, fitting a mold that you think you need to fit in order to be loved or to present in the way that you think is important. But now instead it's, how am I going to care for this one body that I get that's carrying me through this life in every way? And that now it's empowerment, so it's about how do we get there? What's the process to get out of this?
Well, I was just going to say, I love this idea of, like, the amount of love that we can hold for ourselves, and that we, and if you're working from that space, the powerful things that then you're able to do, and that you can truly see the situation for what it is and not be looking at it like like you're at the fair and looking at one of those funny mirrors, and like being completely distorted. And so like, I think that working from that space, a really big question that you can ask yourself is like, what is my purpose? Like, what am I wanting to do? And, like part of that, and you mentioned this earlier, Keilani, of like, we need to be stewards of our bodies. We need to be good stewards of our bodies. And if we want to be here for a long time for the ones that we love, for our kids, for our children, then there might be a certain like state of our body that might be unhealthy, that is actually detrimenting, and that from the framework of like, if I care about my body in the way, not in the way the society wants me to care about my body, but in the way that actually matters, then I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of it so that I can be there for my kids, so that I can be there for other people when they need me. Yeah. And that looks totally different than somebody that's just trying to get on a GLP-1 because they need to fit into this dress next week. That's a totally different situation.
Right. Or the upcoming vacation or large event or whatever, which it's like at the same time, since we're on the topic of like, self-love, etc., let me love anybody out there who has used a GLP-1 to get into the size they want for that, for that event or whatever it may be. Like, you're worthy, you're beautiful. There's nothing wrong with you for having chosen that. We have absolutely no judgment for that. What we're trying to explore is there a better way to apply these things that we're talking about, the GLP-1s, because it is something that we offer. It is something that we believe has benefit. And what's the highest and best use, and how can we make sure to not leave behind our mental health and self-love in the process? Yeah,
and I guess this is a question I wanted to direct to Dr. Jones, is with this, all this context that we've established, how would you, if a patient's coming to you and is seeking GLP-1s for treatment, and they qualify, they have all the indications, their BMI is above a certain amount, all that, how would you go about essentially trying to convey this message to them?
Yeah. So I approach all of these with a holistic approach. I think it's important for them to understand that, this, as we mentioned before, is not a quick bullet. You're not, this is not just something that you take, you get better. And no, this is a lifestyle change. This is a mindset change that is important to continue if you want to have, sustainable weight loss. Okay. So I make sure that they understand that this is a comprehensive kind of picture of you as a whole being, not just a specific number on a scale, number one. And then number two, I talk to them about what their goals are. What are they looking to achieve out of this? And I want them to be realistic. And again, my antenna starts to go up, of course, if they mention to me, I do want to, be able to wear this dress. Or I had a friend who lost 10 pounds, and I have this little bit of fat here that I want to get rid of. That really shouldn't be the goal. Yeah. The goal for this is to get you to just live a better, healthier lifestyle that you can continue on and that you can pass on to, your children. And this is what we should be, after as clinicians.
Yeah, and it is just because it is such an effective weight loss treatment.
It's incredible.
It's, and I can appreciate if you, having that experience of fighting with that last 5 to 10 pounds for years and years and years, and you're like, what if I could just get it all off and this could be the thing? Like, that's a hard thing to not be attracted to,
right?
Yeah,
of course.
But I think
dark
what
side.
The root of what we're saying is like, what are those 5 to 10 pounds actually giving you?
Yeah.
Like to lose and release those, what do you actually gain? Are you that much more worthy, or now you can say you fit in this size, or you know what I mean?
Well, and I wanted to touch on that too, and this is something we talked a little bit about before, but like the weight loss journey, the number on the scale, the food that you eat, the biological mechanisms that happen in your body, all of those things are completely amoral.
Yeah.
Like there is no morality to that whatever. The only morality or judgment that comes onto those processes is coming from the outside. It's coming from society. Yeah. And so if you really, the only thing that matters when it comes to all those things, the number on the scale, what's going on in your body, the amount of fat that you have on your body, any of these things, the only thing that matters with that is it progressing you towards your goals, your personal goals that matter deeply to you, or does it not? And if it does, then you're on track, man. Keep it up. You're doing a great job. And so like, I think that it's important for that to be actually, and I appreciate that you ask your patients, what are your goals? Mm-hmm. And like, I think that that's super important to even like dig deeper into it of like, well, actually like, what are they?
Yeah, for sure. Because, a lot of people, they want to be heard. They want to feel like, if someone's listening to me, these are the issues that I'm having. And do you appreciate that? Can I connect with you? Because then, when you offer advice, they are more apt to take your advice and to kind of stick with whatever, treatment method that you're providing to them. And just as a side note, I think we often forget about all the benefits that the GLP-1s have. And it's not just with weight loss. I mean, there are tons of benefits that are even coming out. I feel like every time I open my email, I see a new statement from some sort of medical society that, GLP-1s are great with cardiovascular health. The GLP-1s have proven to have this mental aspect improvement. So there are all these different other,
even sleep apnea.
They're all
kidding.
There are all these different effects that it has metabolically on our bodies, that in people who truly struggle from obesity, that they're going to get the benefit in addition to the weight loss. So that's something just to keep in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I mentioned this on another episode. Dr. Jones wasn't here, and you weren't here either, obviously, Keilani, just in my heart. But I did a round of semaglutide, the GLP-1, similar to what Ozempic and Wegovy is what you'd draw a correlation. A couple years ago, after really essentially having some gut microbiome issues that I put on over 20 pounds without changing anything, and I was lethargic, all these things, and so I was on a track to fix everything in my gut, but it was also the middle of winter, which is just really crappy timing to put on weight for no reason and be tired and sad and all those things.
You got to come to Florida.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Just text me your address, Dr. Jones. And so my thinking behind it was actually okay, I know enough to know this is not going to be a thing that I take forever to get to a specific weight.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for is I need a jump. I needed to be headed in the right direction, feeling like, I'm headed towards my usual normal self, right? Because I think most people have probably reached a point in their body where it's changed enough that you don't feel like yourself. It's, because I've had different body shapes and sizes and, lost over 50 pounds, gained and lost over 50 pounds 3 times in my life. So there's been times where I really was gross, you just have too much weight. But there have been times where I'm I just don't even feel like myself. It was something inside, not even what was visual, if that makes sense. And so anyway, having that to kind of give me a boost for a few months and get on the right trajectory was great, because then it was okay, mentally I have more wherewithal now to, do this specific food regimen that I need to rebalance my gut microbiome and, to be doing the meditation in the morning and all of these other things for my health. It was just kind of a little bit of a weight lifted. No pun intended. But seriously, and so I think that there are a lot of applications and ways to use, and I'm not even saying that I used semaglutide in the right way. I think what I'm trying to say, in fact, is I don't know that there's a right or wrong way specifically, rather just working with a professional. And it makes sense to me to working with a medical doctor and a mental health doctor simultaneously, because these things really are so intertwined.
They are.
You cannot rip them apart from one another. And so it makes sense to me to have someone to walk alongside you in both avenues.
Yeah.
And that's what I would recommend. I've had clients who have used GLP-1s, and when they're coming to it with really wanting that holistic approach, I think that's important. What I think is unfortunate is that it's not honestly a requirement. And what comes to mind is that Spider-Man quote, with great what is it? With great power comes great responsibility, right?
You have
And
to say it with a deep,
this is a
gravelly
powerful
voice.
tool. It is a tool in the toolbox. There are many.
Yeah.
It is a powerful tool, and you mentioned lots of different additional health benefits that one can find. But again, if you're doing it thinking becoming a certain size means that I will just be happy, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, happiness is fleeting. It's not a permanent state. We might want to find an inner peace or a flexibility with navigating life. But to feel as though that will all of a sudden make everything better is an illusion, and one that I don't feel propels you to live your best self or to find that inner peace that you're really seeking. So, questioning what is it that I am wanting, and if it is, I want more energy. I want to keep up with my kids. Those types of things. That feels more, I can work with that. That's a reasonable goal.
That is reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
We had one of our moments. That's funny. Oh no. Oh, we've had a lot of thoughts today, Derek. There's been a lot of things to really sort through.
My brain is.
Well, and I feel like this episode is a lot more. I don't want to say heavy, but it feels deep. Like it feels weighty. Not that any of the health topics that we discuss are not, but there's something about this. I think probably just because it feels like such a pervasive issue in our society, and it's like here we have this, tool, this new tool in our toolbox to help assist in the journey when seeking health and wellness and fitness. But there's always a dark underbelly to everything.
Well, and there's just so much shame around all of it, and like it continues to follow us. Mm-hmm. So people that are legitimately getting the help they need, taking these medications, you get these, it's like, oh, does this celebrity have Ozempic face? Does this? And they're continually just won't stop with the attacks. It's just like, chill out, guys. Can't you just focus on yourself and not have to constantly be going after somebody else and let them experience their health journey on their own. I don't know.
I saw even, I've never watched like the Real Housewife shows or whatever, but there was like some documentary that followed one of them who had always been the larger woman in the group. I think it was like Real Housewives of Orange County or something. And how she finally, when the Ozempic came out and she starts using for the first time, she's finally at the size and weight as all these other women. And it was something that she struggled with for a really long time. And so she's like, oh my God, I finally did it. Because she just couldn't seem to break these habits of how much she was eating. And she did all the things she was supposed to and it never happened. So this got her there. But then the poor woman, she uses Ozempic and she didn't even really have Ozempic face. I didn't even think she'd got that thin, but now she's just getting all that, because you cheated and you did. And it's like, there's really no winning. It's unfortunately, it feels like.
I want to, so the whole idea of Ozempic or any of these medications being cheating is so dumb. And it kind of goes back to this whole amorality thing. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of one of these things where it's we are enjoying modernity. And if you're saying this is cheating, then, make sure that your house doesn't have any AC. Make sure that you go out and hunt a moose with your bare hands. Fair. No spears, because that didn't happen until, whatever era. Work. Right? Walk to work. And for all these people, it's this is cheating. It's no, this is modernity. Yeah. This is the modern solution for a lot and it's an amazing boon for so many people. So
I also think in our society, unfortunately, look at the food options we have available for many people, or people can be living in a food desert and not have access to healthy foods, or the cheapest thing you can get, or is fast food, or just the pressures that are on us are higher than ever. And the societal resources to just even cultivate what is a healthy diet is not there to support us. So there are some people that I think have, not just what's available to them, what they have access to, on top of eating perhaps to numb emotional pain, not understanding the dynamics that are at play there, not coming from a family that feels supportive or provides a balanced perspective when it comes to appearance, are all things that are largely out of our control.
Yeah. That's a really tough one.
Again, this is a tool that's in the toolbox. I personally feel like we should also explore the other options before we jump to this one, because there are other options available. Mm-hmm. But I think to shame it is silly. I just think people shaming one another is silly in general. We're all doing our best with the silly. Way, with what we have.
Yeah, it is. It's really sad. When you look at it, just like you explained, that's a perfect explanation. The deck is stacked against us, from the start. So we're already working from behind. So to have something like this available to us, there really should be no shame in this. This is the perfect kickstart to a lot of people's journey that they need, and they need to see something tangible, and this allows them to have that, something that's sense tangible that they can see and hope. Yeah, exactly. To continue on, because it's hard, when you're already behind and then you're trying to work and you have all these factors against you, and then not seeing any progress. Who wants to continue? That's just so having this. I think, for me, in my practice, this truly is a game changer.
Yeah,
That's
kidding.
Amazing. So I guess, too, because I know we have a time stop coming up here pretty soon. So I kind of wanted to go into maybe some brass tacks of what can people actually do to start cultivating this mindset for themselves to be able to say, okay, I am going to approach my weight loss journey in a healthy way. And maybe, Keilani, if there's any specific tactics that you would suggest people do.
Sure. I think first, personal awareness. Many might not even be aware of that critical inner voice that they have. So I invite you to start paying attention. And then, you mentioned a really beautiful gratitude practice. I love that. And in studies, when it comes to gratitude, when you are really practicing it makes you 25% more have a positive outlook and view things with a completely different lens. So again, like creating that attitude of gratitude with your body and what it does allow you to do, I think is really important. And coming back not just to appearance, but what are the things that I would be really excited for my body to allow me to do or have the endurance to do? Those are more about your lived experience rather than a projection or an assumption, a comparison with someone else and what you think a certain ideal is going to get you, because it will not fulfill you.
Yeah.
And
it's been
temporary.
said so many times, comparison is the thief of joy.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on this because I think it is important. In one of the last episodes, Natalie, you talked about how, you've gained weight multiple times, and part of those were from pregnancy. And Keilani, you said something beautiful earlier about that as well. I want to just give you a chance to share that again.
Sure, yeah. Pregnancy changes you, and I feel like, for anyone, not even the individuals who have not experienced being pregnant.
Yeah. There is some sympathy weight gained during that time. So
And our bodies, I feel, are meant to tell a story. And I realized after my pregnancy, and I did gain probably 40 pounds more than I am now. And I really struggled with that idea of acceptance, but I would not have regretted my beautiful daughter. And so I had to come to terms with, boy, I really want to appreciate the story that my body tells. And it was actually interesting too. I lost weight quickly, but I wasn't trying. I was sick. And I was receiving comments from people saying, you look great. And I had such mixed feelings about that because it came from like not being able to have the energy, very fearful thoughts and concerns about what was going on, scary possible diagnoses that I wouldn't have wished on anyone. I was wondering, am I just going to waste away? And there was a time I could barely hang on to 100 pounds. And I think we also have to consider the way that we project to other people, because I was realizing, wow, people are excited that I look a certain way, even though when I look in the mirror, I was almost like disgusted because it felt very disconnected and it wasn't an intention to reach that. Yeah. So again, even the way that we talk about other people, their bodies when they are looking quote unquote thin or even quote unquote healthy, I think we have to even weigh that and what the benefit is, what the purpose of it is. Maybe it's, you seem like you're feeling good, or
your skin is glowing.
Right. Like there's other ways that we can bring it about. And then I felt fraudulent too, because here I felt like they thought I was out there like busting
hitting the gym.
And I'm like, no, I've been sick. That isn't the case.
Yeah.
It's so, I could just keep thinking about, and I feel like we talked about this a bit last time you were a guest on the podcast, Keilani. It's kind of like the chicken egg, which come first, because I keep thinking about like the food that we feed our body also feeds our mind and our mental health, right? And also the care and nurturing that we give to our mental health feeds our ability and motivations to be able to eat good food and go exercise and move, right? They're both, like we said, irrevocably tied. And so maybe people will feel a little confused. Where do you start? Where do you begin? Right. And I don't know. I'm curious what you would say, because I would just say, start with what feels easier. Like, does it feel easier to stand in front of the mirror and have gratitude for the body that you're looking at? They gave all, or does it feel easier to go outside for a walk for 20 minutes? Do you know what I mean? I mean, what would you say for people that it's like, well, these are both important. I don't know where to start. I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired. I'm sad. I don't love myself right now. What would you say?
Yeah, I just finished an integrative mental health certificate that's all about nutrition in the body when it comes to mental health. So I think understanding those pieces are really important. And I'm going slightly off topic, but I'll come back around.
I trust you.
A lot of the kind of mood hormones that we experience are actually produced in our gut. Serotonin is produced in our gut. And so it's important that we do maintain a healthy nutrition to support our mental health, especially like omegas and just making sure that we're getting those healthy fats and having a healthy relationship with our food. That doesn't mean that when you have a donut, you should feel shameful, but it's about, again, being a good steward and understanding what our body needs to support our best life. And, you know, when I think about, if you think about drugs that are addictive, we don't often think about sugar. And sugar is highly addictive. I say that as a sugar addict, that I have to, I'm constantly having to be
I'm addicted to sugar.
Sugar addict. I have to be in relationship with my addiction to sugar. And as a good steward, I have to keep that in check, and not in a shameful way, but as if you want to have the energy to chase your very energetic 3-year-old,
oh my gosh,
you might have to feed yourself something different. If you want to have the energy to sit through a full day of sessions and holding space for them, I'm going to have the mental clarity. And those are things that I love to do. So it's the understanding the relationship between what you are nurturing with your body and your mind. And when it comes to making small and meaningful steps, I'm a big fan of make it as small and easy as possible when you're struggling with motivation, so that you don't put yourself in an unrealistic position to then feel shame and then shut your motivation down. So for me, I want to have healthy snacks readily available, a bag of nuts, things like that, have an apple, whatever it is. And the rest, I hope I can figure out the next step. But if you can have something readily available, oftentimes when we have some kind of a food craving, if I haven't eaten all day, then I'm just going to be like, I don't care what it is. Give me whatever's available and fast, right? But then if what you have that is available that you've prepared is healthy, almonds or whatever it may be, a banana, that same part of you, that voice that's wanting to just fulfill and satiate, it's going to be quieted down, and you'll be able to make, again, more clear and balanced choices in what you're doing. So part of being a good steward is, again, that relationship with your body, and how are we fueling it?
And what I heard you was just kind of noticing, sorry, Dr. Jones, kind of just when you were talking about eating, and now I've kind of lost it when you were talking about eating, but you also, having the things on hand, and I was thinking that you also will start to create a pattern. When you have that craving, whatever, and what you give yourself instantly, you'll start to, over time, it'll break down the habits and the urges to reach for those things that you normally would. But it is still hard, but you're talking about something that's really small and measurable, and being prepped and prepared for it. The other thought will come back to me eventually.
Yeah, that's what happened to me earlier.
I know. And then you were like, I got it.
That's right. Eureka.
But please, Dr. Jones.
Just to kind of piggyback off of Keilani's point about the relationship with your body. When I encounter, patients and we're talking about these things, I always talk to them and tell them it's really, really important to get in tune with your body, because most people aren't. We just aren't. We're so distracted with life that we're just kind of walking around blind and just living in the moment of whatever million things we have to do for that day, and we have no idea what's going on with our bodies. And unfortunately, that leads to a lot of the unhealthy habits and the eating habits and all the things that we do that we just don't even think about. So my first step is to tell people right away, get in tune with your body. And they ask me, well, how do you get in tune with your body? When you wake up in the morning, you lay in bed, just do a complete body scan. Just get in tune. Figure out the areas where you may have a little bit of tension. Figure out if you're hungry. Listen to the signals that your body gives you. That's how you get in tune. Be intentional and think about these things each day. It's important that you take a pause back and think about these things. We talked a little bit earlier about having more intentional eating. Be mindful about the things that we are eating, the way that we are eating. Take a break. Enjoy the food, get rid of distractions. All these things will help. It'll decrease the emotional type eating that you have. It'll decrease the cravings. It'll offer you better choices. And you'll start to see, I think, as a byproduct of all these things, you'll start to see the things that you are superficially interested in just kind of fall away. So, the weight loss will kind of just naturally happen more so than, if you're so intentional and being restrictive about the kind of diets that you're having. So
thank you for saying that, because mindful eating and intuitive eating eating, I think, are really important points.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're on autopilot. I think
Yeah.
it's an unrealistic amount of busyness that we are under right now, that we as human beings, as just the creatures that we are, we're not meant to thrive that way.
Yeah.
And it's a radical idea to, instead of saying, I'm going to be like the busiest and I'm going to do all of this perfect, and we have this perfectionist kind of mentality, to say, I'm going to be okay with what fits and works for me.
Yep.
And that goes for food, and mindful eating is like, reduce all those distractions. And when I practice with clients, I try to bring in some kind of a fruit or something that comes from nature, and like, we're going to just take in our senses and like, look at it.
Yeah.
This apple grew on a tree somewhere. Someone planted that tree.
It's miraculous.
Right? Like, someone picked that fruit, it brought it to you. Think of all the processes that brought it here. There's no other apple that looks exactly like this.
Yeah.
That has exactly all these little details. It's unique. And then the sensation of like really eating it, and you will find a completely different experience when you are fully in tune with all of your senses as you are eating a food.
For sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
my boyfriend and I were just talking about that too the other day.
Yeah.
Was like that mindful eating thing, and talking about like taking a full inhale, exhale, having this thought thing, saying thank you, but even thinking about where the food came from.
It's incredible.
And it's just slowing down, man. That's just
Yeah.
what I keep hearing is just slow down.
Slow down.
Check in.
Yeah.
Be aware.
Yeah. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. I think we're hitting pretty close to time.
Yeah, it
So,
is about that time.
I just wanted to thank you guys so much for joining us.
It's
It's been
so fun.
an
I wish we
absolute
could talk
pleasure.
longer.
And
It went so fast.
honestly, I think this is probably the most important conversation we've had today.
agree.
Yeah.
And I hope that you listeners got something of value
Mm-hmm.
today. We encourage you to check out Keilani's episode for content like this and more.
Yes.
She's absolutely phenomenal.
Delightfully dysfunctional. You can
Yes.
find
Yep.
them on the
Thank
TikToks
you.
and Instagrams.
Yep. And if you have any questions for us, for Dr. Jones, for Keilani, find her at Delightfully Dysfunctional. And if you have any questions for us, leave them in a comment.
Leave them in the comments,
Like
because
the
these
video.
are recurring guests for us at this point. So
That's
being
right.
able to let us know what you'd like to see and hear from Invigor Medical Podcast would be amazing.
Yep. And that'd be awesome.
Thanks for
Thank
listening,
you for
guys.
having
Thank you
us.
so
Yes,
much.
thank you for having me.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you next time.